This is Bill Fletcher with the Cary, North Carolina Rotary Club. You're about to join in progress a presentation made to our club in June of 2011 by Robin Lane, the instructional resource teacher at Briarcliff Elementary School. She is sharing some experience with a new program sponsored by the Cary Rotary Club called Read a Book, Get a Book. Please enjoy.
It was built in the late 60s, so it's not like it was new or anything, but when you'd say you worked at Briarcliff, they'd either give you a blank look or they would say, where's that? Now when you say you work at Briarcliff, they say, oh yeah, Briar Creek over by the airport. And you're like, no, this is Briarcliff. They just don't seem to understand that we're there. But we're tucked away in a little neighborhood, and there's no through street, so nobody goes past us to go anywhere. And so nobody knows where we are, but even though we're small and rather anonymous, that is not what happens in our school. Our school is an incredible place. The Evaluation and Research Department gave us some information that we had not really tallied up about how well we were doing at closing the achievement gap between and the way they had grouped it was they had grouped the white and Asian students in one group and the Hispanic and black students in the other, because that's generally where the largest achievement gaps fall. And if you'll look at this chart, this is our reading scores from 2007 through 2010. And you'll see that while we started off in reading significantly below Wake County in 2007, 2008, we have made phenomenal progress with our black and Hispanic populations. And the same thing has happened with math. I'm just very proud of Briarcliff because I think we've done a great job. I think our students have done a great job, our teachers, our whole community has done a great job. And the only way that we have been able to do this is because of guys like you, ladies like you. It's our community partners that have made the difference. And this, I hope you don't mind, I stole this from your website, but it really is the support of organizations in the community that make a difference in how we can teach our children. And we just want you to know how much we really appreciate it. In August, Bill contacted us and wanted to know if we could have a meeting with some of your folks here and come up with some ideas on how you could support literacy in our school. It was kind of out of the blue. We didn't know y'all were looking for anybody, and it just truly was out of the blue. I don't know how we were lucky enough to get chosen. But we met with several people from your organization, and I'm horrible with names, so I can't tell you exactly who all met with us, but it was a wonderful group. And we threw out all sorts of ideas about maybe helping with our Saturday school program or helping with our after-school tutoring program, maybe having some of your members come and tutor our children. We just threw out all sorts of ideas, but nothing seemed to quite fit. And so we went our separate ways for a little while and thought about it, and we came back again and met some more. And we came up with this idea of putting books into children's hands. And we didn't know this at the time, but last year, or we didn't think about it at the time, last year a study came out. It was about a 20-year study. This was the question: which of the following best predicts the achievement of the students? And it was the level of the parent's education, or the parent's occupation, or the number of books in the home. And surprisingly, it was the number of books in the home that made the biggest difference. So that really surprised me, but the study showed that if you had 500 books in your home growing up, that you would spend an average of 3.2 years longer in school than anyone else who did not have that resource at home, regardless of the education of your parents. And to me, that was a phenomenal eye-opener. And it was great because it fell right into what you guys did for us. You gave us books to put in hands of students. What we did was, and it's not a new idea, it's not something that nobody else has ever thought of. There's really nothing new in education. We rewrite something and revamp it and put it out as new, but it's not new. But we decided that the best thing to do was to get books in the hands of young children. So we targeted our K through 2 children, and I asked the teachers to give me the names of 3 students in each classroom who probably did not have the resources at home to have books. And they did, and I was working with kindergarten at the time, so I started with kindergarten. And the idea was that we would give each child a basket with their name on it. It said Johnny's Library, and they would take that basket home, and their goal was to fill up that basket. I brought the kindergartners in first, and I explained it to them, and they were all really excited, but they were clueless. They really didn't know what we were talking about. I gave them their first book. I let them choose from books that were at their grade level, and I read the book to them and gave it to them. I wrote their name in the front so they knew it was theirs forever. They didn't have to bring it back. And the idea was that if they could take it home and read it, bring it back after they felt comfortable reading it, and read it to me, then they could choose a second book. And they could do this as many times as they wanted until I ran out of books. And if you could have seen my office at the time, you would have known I had taken the $1,000 that your club had so generously given us and bought quite a few books through discount organizations and through the Scholastic warehouse sale and all sorts of things. And plus, Jim Lovejoy had come to the school with, I believe, a total after 2 trips was like 26 boxes of books. It was probably over 2,000 books. And they were all in my office. I didn't like that. So I told the children it was their goal to get these books out of my office. And then I wanted them to fill up their baskets. Well, the kindergartners were excited. They got their first book. They took it home, and I never saw them again. There was only one kindergartner who consistently came back and asked for more books. And it was not because they didn't want books. It was because they really didn't understand the concept that I was trying to get to them. I sent home letters to their parents explaining what we were doing, that they were getting these books, they didn't have to bring them back, and that it was an opportunity for them to have more books. I even had the letter translated into Spanish because a good proportion of the children were Hispanic. But the kindergartners, even when I would go to them and say, "Can you come read to me today?" they're like, "Yeah." They were just absolutely not there. In mid or late January, I decided to go ahead and start on the first graders, and they were a whole different ballgame. They were so excited. There were 2 boys that came to me probably at least 3 days a week to read and get a new book. And they were so excited. I had breakfast duty on Thursdays, and they would come and stand in the back of the cafeteria and wait for me to finish washing tables down so that they could come and read to me. And they didn't care that their class was getting ready to start. The idea was that they would come to me between 8 and 8:30 in the morning when children were arriving at school so that I wouldn't take any of their instructional time. And they would come to me, read the book, choose another book, I would read it to them, and they would take it back home. And those 2 boys really ran with it. I think they each ended up with close to 30 books in a period of 3.5 months. So the first graders gave me some energy to continue on, and then at the end of that, at the beginning of February, I added the second graders, and they too rose to the expectations. I was very pleased to see those faces come to me every morning. It was such a joy to see them and how excited they were about reading. I gave them a range of books to choose from, but they were all within a few months of their actual level that the teachers had given me. The books that I had purchased and the ones that Jim had brought to me, we leveled them using what's the equivalent of an accelerated reader book, where it's a year and a month. So if it said 2.3, it was like 2nd grade, 3rd month. And there was a little sticker on the books, and they were in order, and I would say, "Okay, well, you can choose from basket number 3, honey." And so they would go and dig through the basket and choose a book. So they didn't always choose the next level up. They kind of went back and forth a little bit. But I thought that was okay because I'm looking at their interest level. I want them to be excited about what they're reading and not for it to always be a real challenge. I want it to be an excitement and an opportunity. So as we got through the year, I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. I found out very quickly that it was, with 42 children doing this, I couldn't do it by myself. And Joy was available at times to help me, but the principal has other things she needs to be doing between 8 and 8:30 besides this. So I solicited some 5th graders to help me, and that was wonderful. I had a handful of 5th graders that would come to me in the morning, and sometimes nobody would come to read to us, and we'd just get to visit. And then sometimes we'd have 7 or 8 or 9 kids come and read, and I would send each child with a 5th grader. And these were not your top 5th graders. These were not your best readers and your best students. These were kids who had struggled to learn to read themselves. And so giving them the opportunity to be a leader for a smaller child was great. They absolutely ate it up. They loved it. So in the end, because I am testing coordinator, I kind of had to stop the program about the beginning of May because it's time for EOG testing, and there was just no way I could commit to being in my classroom at that time of day. And so basically the first graders had 4 months and the second graders had 3.5 months. We had 12 students in first grade. 2 of the students moved during that period of time. 2 of the students really didn't buy into it and didn't participate very much, and I wasn't going to force them to do it. But they had 4 months of the program. Second grade, we had 15 students. 1 student moved, and 2 were non-participatory. But of those students, in first grade, 2 students made 4 months of progress in 4 months. 1 student made 9 months, 1 student made 1.1 years, 1 student made 1.5, 1 1.6, and 2 students made 1.7. Yes, I guess you can guess which 2 made the 1.7 years ago. But the total number of books given out for first graders was 96 books. In second grade, we had 4 students made 4 months of progress. 2 made 6, 2 made 7, 1 made 8, 2 made 9, 1 student made 1.2 years of progress. The total number of books was 100. I was thrilled because this was the beginning of a new program, and I knew that we had talked about continuing the program on, and I still have a lot of books left, so I can start it right at the beginning of the year next year. There are a few things that I would do differently. I would arrange for PTA to take over some of the responsibilities. Not because I didn't like doing it, because I really did, but because I couldn't always be there between 8 and 8:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'm off campus at a meeting. Sometimes I'm needed by a teacher, or to fill in for a teacher. There's lots of things that I end up doing that would take me out of my office. I would continue to have the 5th grade students helping. I think that was probably one of the best parts of this program. And because I do have books left, I can begin earlier in the year. And I will begin with 2nd graders next year and work my way down to kindergarten, so that hopefully by the time the kindergartners get involved, they'll be a little bit more mature and a little bit more prepared to handle it. But again, we could not have done any of this without you. I think it was a wonderfully successful program. I expect there to be even more success this year. We do have some money that was given to us because of you from another Rotary Club, and that money has not been spent yet, so we actually have some startup money for next year too. And I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Especially the donated books.
That was very difficult.
Plastic books, you can handle it.
What I ended up doing, I did get some parents to volunteer, and they came into my office several days, and this was mostly with the donated books, because I had already gone ahead and leveled the books that we purchased, because I luckily bought 4 or 5 copies of each book. But I used my media specialist